of clairvoyantly what was coming or what was already out there. And I think that's very common with a creative type person, you know. So they may not have actually been privy like they were insiders doing this, but they could certainly have gotten the information through other means, if that makes sense.
Sure, but I mean, even if they were in a community, a scientific community,
yes,
even if you just heard what some of the best minds might have been saying would be possible, you know, you'd be okay right then and there.
Yeah. Well, you know, also that these secret societies that have been around for a very long time, you know, you hear stories about the Illuminati, you know, Bavarian Illuminati, and it was started by Adam Weishaupt in 1776, May 1st, 1776. That's nonsense. I'm not saying that that didn't happen, but
right.
These secret societies have been around for centuries. I mean, centuries. I mean, we're talking about millennia, okay?
Why wouldn't they have been with us right from Babylon?
Yeah. Well, okay, but you know that, Keith. But you see, you get these disinformation people. I've heard them all. And they're out there. They're promoting this stock, you know, party line. Well, you know, this is how it started. But that's nonsense. And you know, you can go back centuries and centuries and find these people. And the fact of the matter is that they did have knowledge. They certainly had metaphysical knowledge and things like that. But the question is, when you come down to the spiritual element of it, you know, the spiritual element of it, and because I'm a Christian, I have to say I'm a Christian, so therefore I consider anybody that's using this kind of information or knowledge to do harm or to divert people's attention or belief from the gospel of Jesus Christ, I've got a problem with that. How about you?
I do, but I want to have you try something on, all right?
Okay.
A brother, Paul Tantu, had once, we had talked, and...
This is your brother?
No, I mean a brother in Christ.
A brother in Christ. Okay, I wasn't sure if I heard. Go ahead.
And he has a lot. No, I have no brothers that I know of.
Okay.
But he has a blog spot that you can hit from my website. But he said something to me.
And what's his name again?
All right, it's Paul Sandhu, Sandhu.
Okay, go ahead.
He is an Asian Indian-born individual who's living in Canada now.
Okay.
And he said something to me, and I find no fault with it, and I'll tell you where I'm going with it, and that is, we were talking about Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope and Anglo-American establishment, and how he seemed to be giving us an inside look. But Paul said something, and I've used that as an acid test, and I find it accurate. He said, anybody who's allowed to tell you so much about something, whatever he's telling you about isn't the real deal. Isn't the top of the power pile, if you know what I mean.
That's right, yeah.
And my feeling is, after all this time now, maybe 8, 9 years of my research or whatever, I'm starting to realize that it may not be about Freemasonry. It may not be about, you know, these are all groups, yes, high-degree Freemasonry, we can't argue about that. Skull and Bones, fine. Rosicrucians, I think probably a little bit more powerful than people give them credit for. But you know what? There's something that's telling me that beyond all the organizations that we are told about, that we are allowed a little look into, there's something a whole lot more nefarious over the top of all this.
Yeah. And Keith, you know what? I guess I tend to view things in a somewhat simplistic way, because truth is usually simple.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
By simplistic, I mean, and again, I come back to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I'm not talking here about necessarily, I'm not a hidebound fundamentalist, I'm not a Bible thumper, I'm not a literalist, and I'm not a legalist. You know, you get all these people, I'm sure you've seen them and heard them. They're trying to, you know, go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and they're attacking people because if you don't believe this, you're not a Christian. If you don't, you know.
Yeah.
And to me, you know, I ignore all of that, because the simple truth that's contained in the gospel of Jesus Christ, the simple truth, it really speaks to the principle of what is good, which is of God, and what is evil. And all of these secret societies, all of this stuff that goes on is all based on manipulation. It's based on greed, manipulation. It's based on aggression. In other words, they just can't let people be. They have to control everything. And that's about as evil as you could get.
Well, I mean, that goes back to what we said the last show, and that is the one thing that, we talked about this is, Justice Brandeis said this, but the most cherished right is the right to be left alone. And as Orwell would say, or so many who talked about the proposed totalitarian world to come that we would know as Satan's attempt to global rule.
Exactly.
You'll never be left alone. That's the whole point.
It's called, you know what I call it, Keith? I call it the inviolability of personhood.
Yeah.
The inviolability of personhood. And you know what? I mean, for me, and I know some people could consider me an extremist, but I feel this way about animals too, and just leave them alone, all of us. Leave us alone. Let them live their lives the way they were meant to live. All of God's creatures, And so that's how I feel. And I feel this deep in my heart because it's really based on having a feeling and a knowledge of the sanctity of life, I mean, life is a gift from God, and you've got all these people out there, and the whole web of lies that they have created, and this happens in a very insidious manner too, Keith. I'm sure you know that this New Age movement, a lot of this New Age movement, they talk about, it seems okay on the surface, they talk about, love and light and all this stuff, and, and most of the people that are involved in that
are buying it. Yeah.
They mean well. They're benign. They don't mean to harm anybody. But if they would look a little deeper to where they're really getting this information that they believe in, these New Age manifestos and things like that, the doctrines of the New Age movement. If you dig deep enough, what you'll find is that they come from these secret societies. They come from things like the Theosophical Society, Helena Blavatsky, and some of these people, when you come right down to it, they're demon worshippers. That's what they are.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. And here's the thing I find also very fatuous, and that is these folks also believe that somehow, some way, there's going to be some kind of perfect society, which we all long for, but we know can't take place because the flesh is hopelessly corrupt. And it only takes about 10 people to screw up something for about 1 million. So I can understand their search for something that will finally bring, quote, humanity to some kind of higher level, which is really
not.
not.
But they're looking in the wrong direction.
Of course they are. And everything gets corrupted. If we had a society or a civilization that was the real deal and perfect, what happened to it? Why don't we know about it, and where did it go?
Exactly, because you know what we're talking about, and I'm sure as a Christian yourself you can agree with this, probably, is that, he who is a friend of the world is not a friend of God. Unless you're an enemy of the world, you're not a friend of God, because what's in the spirit is what counts. It's not what's in the flesh. It's not flesh creatures and creating the perfect society like a utopia, because all these utopia things are New World Order. That's what they're about,
All these religions, too, if you will. I mean, you can take a look now and check out the Kabbalah and other. But it is and this is what Satan does, too. It flatters the human being to believe he or she can be as of God.
That we are God.
There you go. Bang, it's all over.
Exactly. And, Keith, one of the planks, if you could say that, in the New Age manifesto is, we create our own reality, and that sets it up. It's, of course, a lie, because they take God out of the picture altogether. They boot God right out the door, and another thing they love to do is blame the victim. This happened to you, but it was a lesson for you. You created it to learn a lesson. You should be thankful to the person, the criminal who did this, because he was your teacher, I mean, when you think of the